Hi, Assassins! I'm Brooke.
And I'm Cami.
Welcome to Bookish Realms.
We're just two girls who can't stop talking about fantasy books.
Welcome to our deep dives of Heir of Fire. Heir of Fire follows Selena as she grapples with her identity and faces challenges from her past. This story is filled with world building, new characters, places, and information that propel the rest of the story. Our Heir of Fire coverage will consist of 10 deep dives and one Maasverse episode where we will cover all the connections from this book to SJM's other series. This episode covers chapters 1 through 8 of Heir of Fire. Like in past episodes, the chapter summaries and character discussion are spoiler-free, but the rest of the pod does include spoilers for all of Throne of Glass. This podcast is for mature audiences only. Cami, take it away, girl.
Let's get into some chapter summaries. As a reminder, this is a non-spoiler section where we summarize the chapters we'll cover in this episode. So if you haven't read the entire series, but you have read chapters 1 through 8 of Heir of Fire, you can listen to this section. Chapter 1. Selena's hanging out on the rooftops of Varys, the capital of Wenlin, where the King of Otterland has sent her on a mission to assassinate Crown Prince Galen Ashriver. But she has zero intention of doing that. Instead, she's feeling lost and powerless. In honor of Nehemia, she decides to track down Maeve, the Queen of the Fae, hoping Maeve might have some answers on how to take down the King of Otterland. Chapter 2. While wandering the streets of Varys, Selena is approached by a Fae warrior named Rowan, towering, tattooed, and very intimidating. He tells her that Maeve has summoned her, and even though Selena tries to act tough, she's terrified as she follows him. But she knows that she needs to see Maeve. Chapter 3. Meanwhile, Kale is absolutely spiraling. He now knows Selena's real identity, and it's eating him up. His loyalties are torn, but in the end, protecting Dorian is his number one priority. As if things weren't complicated enough, Aedion Ashriver, the infamous Lord of the North, and cousin to Aelin Galathynius, arrives at the castle. Kale is immediately suspicious. How can an Ashriver be serving the enemy? Then he notices something chilling. Aedion is wearing a black ring, just like the king and his most loyal, mind-controlled minions. And Aedion is carrying the Sword of Orinth, a powerful Ashriver heirloom that technically belongs to Selena. Chapter 4. And we get our first witch POV. Enter Manon Blackbeak, heir to the Blackbeak clan of Iron Teeth witches. She's been lying low, waiting for the perfect moment to strike, when 3 villagers break into her cottage, hoping to kill her. Manon unleashes her terrifying retractable teeth and claws and kills them. She's been hunting for Kraken witches, her clan's sworn enemies, but hasn't had much luck. She killed her first Kraken a century ago and took the witch's iconic red cloak as a trophy. She's been wearing it ever since. Chapter 5. Back with Selena and Rowan, who are not exactly bonding. The two set up camp for the night. As she settles in, Selena notices small shadowy figures watching her. They're the little folk, fairy-like creatures that seem to recognize her. Wherever she goes, they honor her presence by leaving tiny gifts, acknowledging her as a descendant of Mab, one of Maeve's powerful sisters. Chapter 6. Meanwhile, Dorian is dealing with his own problems, like his out-of-control magic. After Aedion shoves him into a rosebush, he meets Sorsha, a healer who treats his wounds. He vaguely remembers her from all the times she's patched him, Kale, and Selena up over the last year. What he doesn't realize is that Sorsha has been secretly in love with him for years. Chapter 7. Rowan drags Selena to Mistward. Maeve is waiting for her. But instead of greeting her as Selena Sardathian, Maeve calls her by a name she hasn't used in 10 years. Aelin Ashriver Galathynius. Chapter 8. Maeve is powerful and terrifying. She tells Selena/Aelin that she won't just let her waltz into Doranel. First, she has to prove herself. And Rowan, he's going to be her trainer. Neither of them are happy about it, and their first impressions of each other are less than friendly. To top it all off, Selena has this nagging feeling that her parents never wanted her near Maeve. But why? She doesn't remember.
Welcome to Character Discussion. In earlier episodes, we talked about the main characters, mostly Selena, Kale, and Dorian, with a few other names here and there. Now, with Heir of Fire, many new characters are joining. To keep things simple, our first few episodes will only talk about Selena and these new faces. We'll share who they are, what we know about them, and a golden line from these chapters. And don't worry, it is all still spoiler-free. For this episode, we will discuss Selena, Rowan, Aedion, Manon, Sorsha, and Maeve. First up, we have our girl Selena, of course. Selena finally arrives in Wendolyn after her 2-week journey, and let's just say her first impression leaves much to be desired. She's been wandering streets and even the rooftops in a drunken haze, still mourning Nehemia's death while haunted by Nehemia's last words. Quote, "You are nothing but a coward." Despite her rough state, she's in the homeland of her mother, Varys, the city where her mother, Evelyn, was born. Adding to the mix, Selena isn't too happy about the promise she made with Nehemia and finds herself regretting it. And even though she's not exactly on friendly terms with Kale right now, she's determined to recover the ring he gave her. Lost in card games, it seems, yet somehow she always manages to reclaim it by any means necessary, meaning there's still some villains there. When Rowan and Maeve call her Aelin, her reaction is clear. I have no idea who you're talking about. It's obvious she's not ready to embrace her true identity as Aelin Galathinius, nor is she prepared to deal with the complications of the Fae world. By the end of this set of chapters, Selena finds herself face-to-face with Maeve, who sends her off to train Mistward. According to Maeve, no half-breed is allowed in Doranel until they prove themselves. As a half-Fae, half-human, Selena must train and prove her worth before she can obtain the information she sought out in Wendolyn. Selena's golden line from this chapter is after Maeve sends her to Mistward, Selena says, she didn't even have a throne, or a crown, or a court. Didn't want them. She could bring down the king as Selena Sardothian. Thank you very much. Also, I must just mention this one as well, where Selena says Aelin Galathinius is dead. All right, next up we have Rowan. He enters the sting with a bang, and he is striking, brooding, in an old Fae male. Prince Rowan Whitethorn. Tall and broad-shouldered, every inch of him has muscle and power. His silver hair, pine green eyes, and wicked tattoos, which start on the left side of his face and they snake across his body, give him an unmistakable edge. Though his temper can flare, it's likely the pressure of being a general in Maeve's court and one of her top men. Rowan is not only a distant cousin to Selena, but also Maeve's nephew through Mora's bloodline. Tasked with training Selena, he quickly shows her that she's in for a rough ride. Rowan's golden line for this set of chapters is after Selena learns that Rowan will be her trainer. He says, given your history, she doesn't trust anyone but her best to keep you in line. Alright, next up we have Aedion. We've discussed Aedion Ashriver before, but knowing that he and Aelin are cousins calls for a quick little refresher. And in these chapters, we learn even more about him. First off, Aedion and Aelin are almost like twins. Kale even points out that their faces, eyes, and hair are so alike that they could have easily been mistaken for twins. Aedion is not just handsome, he is overwhelmingly so. Tall, powerfully muscled, and every inch the warrior the streets whisper about. He is known as the Wolf of the North and is around 24 years old. He was born a prince of the Ashriver line and raised in the Galathinius household. Aedion is known for his fiery temper. Kale observes that while Selena crackles with defiant energy, Aedion seems to pulse with unchecked anger and arrogance, making him seem far nastier and more bitter. He oversees the Bane, which is a group that is famed for their skill and brutality, and he also currently carries the Sword of Orinth, which is a treasured heirloom of the Terrasen royal family. Nowadays, Aedion serves the king and wears one of those distinctive black rings shared by the king and Parrington. Aedion's golden line is so funny. I love the banter between him and Dorian. I think it's hilarious. So Aedion says, trouble between you two, Aedion asks, biting into his meat. Let me guess, a woman? The king's champion, perhaps? Rumor has it she's interesting. Is that why you've moved on from my sort of fun, Princeling? He scanned the hall. I'd like to meet her, I think. Little does he know. But anyways, next up we have Manon. Manon Blackbeak is next in line to lead the Blackbeak Witch clan. She has silver white hair, sharp iron teeth that peek out from high in her gums, and iron claws that go over her nails. Basically, she's someone you really just don't want to fuck with. She's always hunting for prey, and when 3 dumbasses break into her cottage, she lets them run free just so she can have a proper hunt. And she says that she's been like this ever since she was born. Right now, she's on the mission to find the Kraken witches. And to do that, she even pretends to be one of them, hoping that the real ones will show up. She remembers her very first kill when she was just 16, a dark-haired Kraken witch in a blood-red cloak. And she kept that as a trophy, even though she probably shouldn't have. On the day she killed that witch, she even gave her grandmother the witch's heart in a box. It seems it's her duty to hunt down these witches until none of them are left. Manon's golden line from this set of chapters is iconic. She says, you have the wrong kind of witch. Period. Next up, we have Sorsha. Sorsha is our kind and caring healer. She's been a full healer for a year now, though she's been at the castle for 6. Sorsha is the daughter of 2 immigrants from a village in Fen Harrow. With her beautiful hazel eyes, even the crown prince thinks she's stunning. She works in the southern wing of the castle on night duty. And yes, she was the healer who treated Dorian, Kale, Fleetfoot, and Selena after that portal incident. Thankfully, she didn't write down everything that happened that night. Sorsha has also looked after the prince many times, though he still doesn't remember her. She's very observant too. She noticed that Kale and Selena were together when Philippa handed out that contraceptive tonic, and Kale showed up with 4 scratches on his face, and when all 3 of them came in for that checkup, she realized that something had really changed and cracked between them. And on top of that, Sorsha's in love with Dorian, which honestly, who isn't? Sorsha's golden line from this set of chapters is when Dorian tried to see if Sorsha had mentioned that night from a month ago. She replied, "But sometimes we forget to write down everything." And lastly, we have Maeve. Maeve is the queen of the Fae, and she lives in Doranel. She is both Selena and Rowan's aunt, and the sister of Mab and Mora. With her raven black hair and deep dark eyes, she exudes an air of ancient power, fearless, calm, and graceful. Maeve hardly needs an introduction because everyone knows who she is. She is the face of 1,000 legends and nightmares. When she first meets Selena, Maeve doesn't hold back. She makes it clear that she wants to unsettle Selena by mentioning her mother, Evelyn. Evelyn never let Maeve see Selena, which made Maeve watch her through distant eyes. Evelyn wanted Selena to hold back her power, while Maeve wished her to embrace it. Perhaps that's why Evelyn kept them apart. Maeve promises to tell Selena the truth about the word keys once she has proven her worth in Mistward. Maeve's golden line from this set of chapters is when she is sending Selena to Mistward. She says, "I want to see what you will become under the right circumstances."
Let's explore this world. Here we cover the main world-building elements that come up in chapters 1 through 8 of Heir of Fire. We'll revisit these places and world-building elements in other episodes. For today, this section is not spoiler-free, so if you haven't finished the entire series, please do not continue. But please come back when you have. All right, let's talk about Wendlyn. We covered Wendlyn in episode 8 of our Crown of Midnight Deep Dives, but now we're actually in it, so let's add to that. Located east of Aurelia across the vast Great Ocean, Wendlyn is ruled by House Ashriver, a family known for their fair and just reign. The current king, Glaston Ashriver, and his son and heir, Prince Galen Ashriver, have cultivated a kingdom defined by goodness, which makes Wendlyn literally the opposite of Otterland. Wendlyn is considered the last stronghold of the Fae. It's also the homeland of Selena's mother, Evelyn. Glaston Ashriver is Evelyn's brother, which makes Galen Aelin's cousin. Evelyn's ties to House Ashriver link Selena/Aelin directly to this land, which makes her being there even more complicated. Wendlyn is neighbors with Doranel. Despite Selena spending all of Heir of Fire in Wendlyn, SJM does not provide us with a map of this kingdom. It's a very, very interesting omission considering we have a detailed map of Aurelia and the southern continent. The lack of a map of Wendlyn definitely adds more mystery to this land. Politically, Wendlyn also holds a lot of significance. It's a beacon of resistance against Otterland's tyranny, symbolized by its strict border control and policies. Refugees are welcomed, women and children at least, but Otterlandian men are banned entirely. In these chapters, Selena is in Varys, the capital of Wendlyn. Varys is boiling hot and the sun never takes a break. It's so hot that the locals are able to bake tegya, a type of flatbread, on their windowsills. Tegya is oniony and crunchy, which sounds good to me, but Selena is not a fan. The streets in Varys are busy and full of life. The market overflows with color and sound, merchants calling out their goods, carts rolling over cobblestones, and the mix of familiar and exotic wares that speak to a vibrant community. At times, a cool breeze brings relief from the relentless heat, carrying the scent of local spices like nutmeg, thyme, cumin, and lemon verbena. In the background of it all is the sound of bells and gentle tunes from local musicians. As you get away from the capital, things change a bit. The dry, sun-baked coast gives way to terrain where warm, rocky sand gradually transforms into thick forest and rolling hills that eventually rise into tall peaks. While Selena doesn't get to enjoy the side of Wendlyn much, it does sound like a fun place to go. And now let's talk about the Fae and their characteristics. Rowan is the first Fae we're exposed to, and we learn a lot about their characteristics and abilities through their interactions. Once common across Aurelia, the Fae were nearly wiped out during the King of Otterland's anti-magic crusade. The few who remain are known for their strength, speed, and quick reflexes. They also have very sharp senses. They can see clearly even in the dark, and they heal quickly. Magic is a natural part of being Fae. They are born with more magical energy than humans, and their power usually shows itself in forms like ice, wind, or darkness. Sometimes their magic appears in less common ways, like seeing the future or moving through small gaps in the world. Every Fae has a secondary animal form. For Aelin, her human form is her animal form. Although their bodies are much like human bodies, their graceful features, pointed ears, and slightly elongated canines set them apart. Another important aspect of Fae culture is the need for clear and careful wording in any agreement or bargain. Their deals must be very specific, or else the Fae might find a way around them. Selena remembers this as she makes an agreement with Maeve in this set of chapters.
This is our analysis and foreshadowing section, which is not spoiler-free. We will break down parts of the text that tie into or foreshadow future events in the series. If you have not read all of Throne of Glass, please do not continue. Thank you. Sorry. At the start of Heir of Fire, Selena is in Wendelin, still reeling from the events at the end of Crown of Midnight. Nehemia is dead, Kale betrayed her, and Dorian revealed his magic. And before leaving, she gave Kale just enough clues to uncover her true identity as Aelin Ashford Galathynius.
Selena's at rock bottom. There is no other way to say it. Nehemia's last words keep running through her mind, and the only thing that's keeping her going is her promise. Quote, "You're nothing but a coward," Nehemia had said to her. Every slice of the wedding stone had echoed it. Coward, coward, coward. The word had trailed her each league across the ocean. She had made a vow to free Eelway. So, in between moments of despair and rage and grief, in between thoughts of Kale and the word keys and all she'd left behind and lost, Selena had decided on one plan to follow when she reached these shores. We've mentioned it several times, and even in Crown of Midnight, Selena can't forget Nehemia calling her a coward. It follows her everywhere. And Selena says that every slice of the wedding stone echoes the word coward. A whetstone is a tool used for sharpening knives, which just further drives home like how this word feels like it's being like carved or sliced into Selena.
Because no matter how much pain she's in, she won't break her vow to free Elwë. Elwë. Honestly, I'm going to be so for real.
Yeah.
And I saw this on TikTok. Somebody said, what does she say? What is she talking about? Please, like, I simply am just going to say it how I want to say it. Like, I can't because it's going to make me tongue-tied. So if you don't like it, then I don't know what to tell you. I'm so sorry. It's just going to come out.
I defended you when someone said that. So
I did see that. And like, if you're listening, I'm sorry, but like, it's a Robin. It's just a Robin, and it's simply fuck him. Because like, why does he deserve for me to say his name correctly? But the rest of these things, they don't really have a reason. I just simply like, I said it once when I read the series, and it just never has left me. And that's just whatever. Okay, sorry, my TED Talk is done. But she is going to have her vow to free Elwë. And this vow is holding her together and giving her like a sense of purpose, right? We will see Selena return to this vow like over and over and over. And Selena has a plan. Of course she does. She always has a fucking plan. They might not always be good, but she has a plan.
So what is this plan? She's going to free Aurelia from the king by finding and destroying the word keys. And this plan, the way that she talks about it, really does make it seem like it's her final stand. Quote, she'd gladly destroy herself to carry it out. Just her, just him, just as it should be. No loss of life beyond their own, no soul stain but hers. It would take a monster to destroy a monster. This is one of the many times that we see that Selena is just done. She's fine with destroying herself to carry it out. She's willing to sacrifice herself to carry out this plan. That line is especially haunting since Aelin will eventually learn that to truly banish the evil in Aurelia, she will have to destroy herself to forge the lock. And Selena doesn't want anyone else involved in this plan, just her and the king. She wants to protect others from this showdown, which, like, again, is just right on track with the Selena that we know. She believes that only a monster can defeat a monster, showing us how she sees herself. Like, she thinks she is a monster. And again, it just ties into like that whole thing where like Selena starts Heir of Fire at absolute rock bottom.
And the only way to make this plan happen is to meet with Maeve, because Maeve is literally old as fuck, and she's old enough to remember the last time that the word keys were used. We'll analyze the meeting between the two of them like in depth a little bit later on. But again, we see that this plan is the only thing keeping Selena going. Quote, it was the least she could do for Nehemia, for a lot of other people. There was nothing left in her, not really. Only ash and an abyss, and the unbreakable vow she carved into her flesh to the friend who had seen her for what she truly was. Selena isn't doing this for herself. She is really doing it for others, and it's fueled by what she feels like she still owes to Nehemia and just other people in general. She is feeling empty inside, and all that is left is ash and an abyss. That language echoes two things: One, the ash hints to the line "Once upon a time in a land long since burned to ash," as well as the title for this section in Heir of Fire, which is titled Heir of Ash. Selena sees herself as an heir of ash. Everything that she could and should have inherited have just been burned to ash by the King of Otterland. And the abyss she mentions here is a callback to that dream that she has on the anniversary of her parents' death, where she is separated from a white stag by a ravine. And Selena often refers to her grief and power as a bottomless abyss as well.
And then there's the last thing, like tethering her to this world, the unbreakable vow. This is the oath that Selena swore at Nehemia's grave, which she sealed with her blood by slicing her palm. This promise is what fuels her plan and feels like it's the only thing that's keeping her going. Selena feels like Nehemia understood who she truly was, and that memory of that friendship and that connection is what drives her forward because, again, Selena is all about those connections. She loves to love people whether she realizes it or not.
And honestly, losing those connections makes Selena feel untethered and lost. Quote, as the days wore on, she found it suddenly very difficult to bring herself to care about anything at all. Whatever determination, whatever rage, whatever anything she'd felt upon leaving Otterland had ebbed away, devoured by the nothingness that now gnawed at her. And honestly, it's just really clear that Selena starts this book in a severe, deep, deep depression. She is feeling nothing, caring about nothing, which are all the signs of being depressed. Even Selena's rage, which we've seen can be her biggest driver and downfall, has honestly disappeared. She has nothing left. And later on, Selena even acknowledges that she knows the only threat she posed was to herself. She's getting into fights in the bar, getting drunk daily, and generally just not caring about her own safety at all, which scary, And I think that that's why this book is so important in her journey because she starts literally I think there's a point in time in the first 8 chapters where she says well, it can't get much fucking worse than this. She doesn't say fucking, but you know what I mean. And she literally starts at the bottom, and I think that's what makes this journey so compelling. And this book's so awesome.
Yeah, I love this book.
Mm-hmm.
It's very relatable. Her depression is very relatable to me.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the spiral that Selena is in Varys has to do with seeing Galen Ash River, her cousin, and just seeing how the Ash River royals treat their people. The Ash Rivers are technically some of the only family that Selena has left other than Aedion. And Selena quickly realizes that the Ash Rivers are just really good people. Selena sees Galen ride through the city while she's perched on a rooftop. And even from far away, she can see his Ash River eyes, which are just like hers. It's not his looks that stop her. It's the crowd that's cheering for him. This moment hits Selena hard, not just because Galen is her cousin, but because of what he represents, a royal who fights for his people and is absolutely loved for it.
Selena follows him across the rooftops, knowing she could kill him at any moment, but she can't. Quote, blockade running. The prince, her target, was a goddamn blockade runner against Otterland. This line shows the turning point. Selena realizes he's not an enemy. He's truly on her side, doing what she wishes she could openly do. And Galen represents what Aelin wants to be and what she wants to be for Terrasen and her people.
As Galen continues through the city, it's obvious how much his people love him. Quote, people tossing flowers, everyone beaming with pride for their perfect, perfect prince. This line does feel a little bitter, especially with that repetition of perfect, perfect prince. But again, Selena sees everything she's lost. Her kingdom, her people, her sense of purpose in Galen. Seeing Galen reinforces the worst things that Selena thinks about herself, that she doesn't stand for anything, she's a coward.
It's such a low point that a vagrant woman actually confuses Selena for a fellow vagrant. As she's recovering from how embarrassing that is, she hears a low chuckle and enter Rowan. I love him. Oh, man. It is so fun to catch the hints that Rowan's been watching Selena in his animal form. When you first read this, Selena doesn't learn that Rowan's animal form is a white-tailed hawk until chapter 17. So mind you, that's a long chunk of time. But that white-tailed hawk was watching her on that rooftop and watched her drink wine and stick out her tongue. And the first thing that Selena notices about Rowan is that he's Fae. And then she notices a lot of other things about him. He's tall, broad shoulders. He's an absolute fucking powerhouse. She immediately noticed just how powerful he appears to be. And he is a warrior in every sense of the word. His hair is silver. He has tattoos. tattoos that start on his face, goes down his neck, and continue on. And Selena recognizes that this tattoo is in the Fae language.
When he speaks, Rowan has a subtle, lovely accent. She also notes that he would be handsome if he didn't look so scary. But it's okay, girl. You will grow to love that scary man so much. And Rowan has pine green eyes. I am obsessed with the fact that not only do we learn that Rowan smells like pine and snow, which is how Terrasen smells, but he also like kind of physically embodies it too. The silver hair is giving snow, in my opinion, and his eyes are pine green, which I just love it. I love that he's like Terrasen in a man. Not little. He's not a little man.
He's not a little man. I am just so happy to be talking about him again because I love him. Like, I love Rowan. I love their relationship. I'm fangirling, even though he's not real. Like, so what does Rowan do? Quote, his nostrils flare delicately as if he was getting a whiff of her scent. She took some small satisfaction in knowing she smelled horrific, but it wasn't that smell he was reading. No, it was the scent that marked her as her, the smell of her lineage and blood and what and who she was. Yeah, Selena stinks, but the Fae have crazy powerful sense of smell, and Rowan is using his to literally sniff out Selena's lineage, which is like crazy and insane. Like, could you imagine like walking by somebody on the street and be like, you're from so and so bloodline. Your distant ancestor is blah 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 blah. Like crazy.
I'd be like, okay, get away from me.
Yeah. I would be like, stranger danger. Through that set, Rowan is confirming that she is Aelin Ashford Galathinius. And this moment is just so fun in the context of this entire series because in Queen of Shadows, Rowan admits that Aelin's scent has always struck him and it always feels like a call and a challenge. So even though he might just be confirming her lineage here, this is Rowan's first true whiff of his mate, his Karanam.
As Selena and Rowan approach each other, she realizes that he had to be sent by Maeve, and going with him is her best chance to get the answers that she needs. In a truly heartbreaking moment, she pulls down her sleeves to hide her Endovir scars, not wanting Rowan or Maeve to know where she's been. But for Nehemia, for her reckless plan, Selena swallows her pride and lets Rowan take her to Maeve. And so they begin the journey to Maeve. And even though one of the central pieces in Selena's plan has fallen into place, she is still just very deeply struggling. Quote, for a mile, she debated asking Rowan where he planned to stop for the night. But she was tired, not just from the day or the wine or the writing. In her bones, in her blood and breath and soul, she was so tired. Talking to anyone was too taxing, which made Rowan the perfect companion. He didn't say a single word to her. Again, Selena isn't just physically tired. She does feel drained in every part of her being. Selena's soul and spirit are broken to the point that even talking feels like it's just too much, which I've been there. It's not a good place to be. And while Rowan is just simply ignoring her, he is unknowingly giving her the space that she needs, which I just kind of love.
And Selena even acknowledges that she's avoiding talking to Rowan during this journey for a very specific, heartbreaking reason. Quote, and talking meant building some sort of relationship. She had enough friends, enough of them dying too. Selena is just honestly so terrified to get close to people. She doesn't want to form any new connections because she's so used to loving someone and losing them in a traumatic, gruesome way. And she lost Sam and Nehemia and she just really can't handle losing anyone else, which is so sad that she's so traumatized to the point where she's just honestly, I've given up on friendships because friendships, love, all of it, because they all just die or they betray me in some sort of way.
Halfway through this journey, Selena encounters the little folk. She notices 3 sets of small glowing eyes staring at her from behind a rock. Quote, they had always known her, the little folk. Even when Otterland's shadow had covered the continent, they still recognized what she was. Small gifts left at campsites. A fresh fish, a leaf full of blackberries, a crown of flowers. She had ignored them and stayed out of Oakwald Forest as much as she could. The little folk have visited Selena/Aelin in the past. In Throne of Glass, they visit and leave her white flowers as she travels to Rifthold from Endovir with Kael and Dorian. They know who she is, and they leave her gifts to honor her. Side note, and Brooke knows this, I am absolutely obsessed with like imagining these little fairies and I love all their lore. I really wish that like we got so much more about just everything about them. And I love their return at the end of the series too.
Selena watches them carefully, but the little folk do not go away. She wonders if the fairies here honor the same ancient oaths that the fairies in Terrasen do, or if she needs to be ready to defend herself. As she thinks this, more fairies end up popping up. Selena thinks about the wars that destroyed her land, the fae and the fairies who were hunted, and the sacred places that were lost. She wonders if the little folk here ever learned what happened to their kin in the West.
And because of this, she whispers to the little folk, they still live. Selena is a victim of Otterland's terror, and she knows how much it matters to hear that your people are still out there, that they still somehow survive. This is like a very small kindness from Selena, and it really is all that she can offer them. But it's obvious that the little folk were hoping to get that information from her as they disappear after she shares this. Despite everything, Selena still shows compassion, even to tiny, forgotten creatures. She treats these little folk who are like technically like the smallest of creatures with care. This moment reveals the core of who she is, who we know her to be, someone who cares even though she doesn't think she does. Though he doesn't react, Selena senses that Rowan is aware of the quiet moment between her and the little folk. I do think it's important that he sees this because I do think this is like Rowan's first moment realizing that he can't just put Selena in a box as like a spoiled brat. She's complex and she's going to keep surprising him.
Despite this moment with the little folk, Selena feels like it's right that this journey to Maeve is miserable and uncomfortable. Quote, the aches and pains were soothing somehow, not comforting, but distracting. Welcomed. Deserved. She didn't want to know what that meant about her. She couldn't let herself look that far inward. Selena wants all types of distractions from grief. She feels like she deserves the aches and pains because she feels responsible for what happened to Nehemia, and she wants to suffer for it. And she knows that to some extent that it's not right, but she's not ready to look like inward yet. She's not ready to look inside herself yet. And that's so important for us to remember as we start this book. Selena had recovered a bit during her time in the castle with Kale, Dorian, and Nehemia. She'd let herself picture a future, let herself laugh, but she's totally shut down again and isn't ready to move past it. That's why her journey in this book is really powerful and important. Because we do just get her like literally at her lowest point, like we talked about earlier. And she took all of the first 2 books to rebuild that. And now she's literally starting at square zero again.
It makes me so sad.
Yes.
But it's with that mindset that Selena enters Mistward. And Mistward is interesting. We're going to break it down here, but trust us when we say we've taken plenty of notes for our Maasverse Connections episode for Heir of Fire. Mistward is, not surprisingly, covered in mist. To get there, Selena and Rowan go through the Cambrian Mountains, which are filled with a lush forest. These mountains are also covered in mist. The Cambrian Mountains are an actual mountain range in Wales. From the pics we looked at, they are like absolutely stunning.
As they approach, Selena notices granite boulders that are carved with whorls and patterns. She thinks that these are markers, possibly even a warning to humans to stay the fuck away. But we are so curious about these because Selena doesn't say that she recognizes the whorls and patterns. We know that she can recognize the Fae language in Rowan's tattoo, and we know that she knows what word marks look like. She certainly would have commented on recognizing that language if she knew it, which makes us think she does not know it. So, are the markings of these boulders a different language that she doesn't recognize? And if so, what language is it? We must know. We must know. And this will also be talked about in our Maasverse episode. You best fucking believe.
This whole section entering Mistward sent both of us into little spirals. But along with these markers, Selena notices something else. Quote, the stones were dark and ancient, hewn from something other than the abundant granite. Her eyes strained, but she didn't fail to note the ring of towering rocks woven between the trees, surrounding the entirety of the fortress. It was hard not to notice them when they rode between 2 megaliths that curved toward each other like the horns of a great beast, and a zinging current snapped against her skin. Wards. Magic wards. Mistward is covered in mist and wards. SJM, did not get very creative with the same, but these stones did send me on a little spiral. These are the stones that create the words in Mistward. They're dark and ancient, but Selena does specifically note that they are not granite like the other stones that Brooke just talked about with the whorls and patterns on them. Later on, we learn that these stones have a spell woven through them that protects Mistward and that magic bounces off of it, which is similar to how the 3 towers in Aurelia work. Those towers are what keep magic from working. So at first we thought maybe these stones were made from Wordstone, but Selena is familiar with Wordstone and knows how it feels since the castle's clock tower is made from it, and Wordstone makes her feel sick. She interacts with these stones many times in this book and never comments that they feel like the Wordstone from the clock tower. But then the Throne of Glass wiki says that Mistward is guarded by wordstones. Though we couldn't confirm that, it's possible that maybe these words are held up by a type of wordstone, since Maeve did at once have the word keys in her possession, and that's how you make wordstone. It does seem like it's an assumption, though, that these are wordstones. But if they are not wordstone, which there's no confirmation that they are wordstone, what are they?
As Selena gets closer to coming face to face with Maeve, her dread is fucking skyrocketing. She's like, I'm not ready for this shit. Quote, it was so still, as if everything, even the stones, was holding its breath, as if it had been waiting. The sensation only worsened when Rowan wordlessly led her into the dim interior of the main building, up a narrow set of stone stairs, and into what looked to be a small office. To us, this could be 3 things. 1, this is just the actual dread that Selena is feeling over meeting Maeve for the first time, which same. I would be feeling the absolute same. 2, the words are controlled by Maeve, and currently Maeve is expecting her. So this sense that it might be waiting, could it be due to that maybe? Or 3, this is Aylin's magic, and her senses are reacting to getting closer to Maeve, who is, like we all know, the Val Queen. And as she gets closer, the sensation just gets stronger.
And seated behind the desk in this office is Maeve, the Queen of the Fae, her quote-unquote aunt. And Maeve's first words to Selena are the words that she's been dreading for 10 years. Maeve says, "Hello, Aelin Galathinius." And so let's break down every moment of this meeting because it is really fucking intense. Selena replies by saying that Aelin Galathinius is dead, but Maeve is having none of that. She tells Selena that they do not need to bother with lies.
She has virtually no connection to that name, other than the trauma and memories that it brings up. Selena also feels like Aelin died in the river a year ago, which actually isn't too far off, because Elena made sure that Aelin didn't drown, but put her on the riverbank where the cold ended up killing her. Aelin did actually die, though that's not what Selena is necessarily referencing here.
And this initial description of Maeve is so scary. Regardless, obviously, when you're first reading this, you don't know that she's a Valid Queen, but even knowing it, she's just so scary looking. Maeve has black hair and black, depthless eyes. Selena describes them as obsidian in this section of chapters. Quote, Maeve was fearsome in her perfection, utterly still, eternal and calm, and radiating ancient grace, the dark sister to the fair-haired Mab. Maeve's stillness and perfection make her feel ancient, powerful, and untouchable. While Mab was fair and light, Maeve is her shadowy opposite, which just strengthens the idea that something is off with Maeve. It also does bother me that no one looked at these supposed sisters and wondered why they looked nothing alike, but it's none of my business. But even in these first introductory sentences, Maeve is connected to darkness and shadows immediately. From the first meeting, she is dark and shadow.
And Selena is trying to keep herself together, and Maeve is honestly just kind of intimidating her by staying silent and staring her down. Quote, the Queen of the Fae remained silent, her long fingers moon white and folded in the lap of her violet gown, a white barn owl perched on the back of her chair. She didn't bother with a crown, and Selena supposed she didn't need one. Every creature on earth would have known who she is, what she was, even if they were blind and deaf. Maeve, the face of 1,000 legends and nightmares. Epics and poems and songs had been written about her, so many that some believed that she was just a myth. But here was the dream, the nightmare made flesh. Let's break this down because it is loaded with symbolism and foreshadowing. Maeve is a commanding presence, and there is no doubt about that. She doesn't need a crown, and honestly, she doesn't even need to speak, which is crazy. There is something super unsettling about her and eerie, right off the bat. The moon white skin and the dark hair and eyes. Maeve is also recognizable by all. She's been around long enough to have legends, epics, poems, and songs written about her. There's obviously so much lore around Maeve that she's almost become a myth. She's been immortalized through these stories. I do wish that we got a lot more, a little bit more of the lore, even if Maeve is technically considered the villain.
And then there's that line, but here was the dream, the nightmare made flesh, which just gives us shivers. Being a Valg queen, that nightmare language is just like crazy foreshadowing, since part of the Valg power includes essentially feeding on like a person's nightmares and their trauma and using all of that like fear against them. And then there's the owl. We've talked about this owl before. Later on, we learn that this owl is a blood-bound fae healer who is essentially enslaved to Maeve. This owl is like trapped or kept by Maeve in their animal form. We never learn who this owl is or what happens to this healer when Maeve is killed. This is just our speculation, but Maeve most likely keeps this owl as a last line of defense in case Orcus, her Valg king husband, ends up finding her, since healers are able to use their magic to defeat the Valg. So keeping this owl like under her spell, for lack of a better word, offers her like a last line of defense.
Period. She's like, I'm not ready to come home yet. I'll let you know when I'm ready.
That is one of the most relatable parts of Maeve, is that she's like, I don't want to go home to my shitty ass husband. Like,
yeah. Like, okay, queen, we feel you, girl. Well, actually, I don't feel you. I don't have a husband, but like, I know what you mean. And the Maeve description continues. Selena comments that it's hard to keep herself calm when she knows Maeve has been known for driving men mad just like for shits and giggles. She's like, yeah, fuck it, why not? Let's have fun. And then Selena comments that she feels like a spider in Maeve's web. Also, before I say this again, there is so many fucking references to her, like in the beginning of these first couple chapters, because this is the first time I'm rereading this. And the fact that literally, like, one of the first things she said is like in her spider, like whatever, blah, blah, but we'll get there. But it's just crazy to think like how crazy that is. But this is just such good foreshadowing, because in Tower of Dawn, again, Kale and Yrene get the full download about the Stygian spiders, aka the Karanaki.
Kui.
The Karan Kui. So anyways, so in a way, Maeve is the spider queen, which like, I don't like that for her because I don't like spiders, but whatever. All right. And then Maeve drops a bit of information that becomes a point of confusion for some people in the fandom. So let's clear this up. Maeve tells Selena that Rowan is from her sister Mora's bloodline, making Rowan her nephew of sorts.
And then she says, quote, an extremely distant relation of yours. There is some ancient ancestry linking you. So, are Rowan and Aelin related? Yes. But let's break down the math, even though we're not great at math. Rowan is over 350 years old, meaning that when Aelin was born, there was already over 300 years, and at least, even for the Fae, at least a few generations between them. Obviously, generations work differently for the Fae since they aren't limited by human lifespans, but there's even more generations between them. We don't get an exact number, but they're probably like great-great-grand cousins, since the link between them comes from Mora. So they're not related. Like, Aelin comes from Mab's line. Rowan comes from Mora's line. Like, they're not even from the same sister. Anyway, whatever. In terms of genetics, it doesn't seem to be tangible or recent enough to be a concern. And if it helps any, Dorian and Aelin are actually more closely related than Aelin and Rowan. Later in this set of chapters, Rowan even tells Selena that they have as much blood in common as he does with the Fortress Pig Boy. So they are related, but it's not weird, in our opinion.
Yeah. And then Maeve like goes on to tell Selena that she must be wondering why she asked Rowan to bring her here. Maeve says, I have been waiting a long, long while to meet you. And as I do not leave these lands, I could not see you. Not with my eyes, at least. Maeve has been waiting to meet Aelin for a while, but Aelin was kept from her for very specific reasons, and we'll cover those a little bit later. This is the first hint that we get that Maeve does not typically leave Wendelin. We later learn that Maeve had created several lines of defense against both Aelin and the Valve Kings, so leaving Wendelin kind of leaves her exposed to both of those threats. And Maeve reveals that she has spies. She cannot see Aelin with her eyes, but she's got eyes out there. She's got eyes everywhere. And we never fully learn like who these spies are other than the Stygian spiders. And that kind of haunts us because like I just get this like picture of like how would they have known where she was? Like these big ass fucking horse looking spiders are just like creeping about the night trying to get information on Aelin. Like that is just no. I want no parts. Actually no parts.
We know we're spending a lot of time on this first meeting between Selena and Maeve, but it's so packed with hints and foreshadowing that we can't just like breeze past it. As Maeve talks, Selena thinks, quote, There were legends whispered over fires about the other skin Maeve wore. No one had lived to tell anything beyond shadows and claws and a darkness to devour your soul.
It's the way that we get such a huge hint about Maeve's Valg status right here. Maeve's other skin is her Valg Queen skin. And no one lives to tell the tale because then they'd reveal her for who she is. She's not a Fae Sisters queen. She's literally from another world. And the way that her other form is described, shadows, claws, darkness to devour your fucking soul. You guys know how we feel about the word devoured. It is often used to describe Valg powers as the Valg suck away at your essence and use your nightmares, fears, and traumas against you. But it is also so fucking interesting that even with all her power and deception, there are still rumors that something about Maeve just doesn't seem to add up. We'll break this whole little thing down in our Master's Connections episode for this book because, like, when I tell you we were both on the floor, like, yeah, that's all I'm going to say there. So tune in when we get there from a long time from now, but okay.
During this little speech from Maeve, she reveals that she's got beef with Aylin's mom, Evelyn Ashriver. Quote, "They broke my laws, you know. Your parents disobeyed my commands when they eloped. The bloodlines were too volatile to be mixed, but your mother promised to let me see you after you were born." Maeve cocked her head, eerily similar to the owl behind her. It would seem that in the 8 years after your birth, she was always too busy to uphold her vow. If her mother had broken a promise, if her mother had kept her from Maeve, it had been for a damn good reason. A reason that tickled at the edges of Selena's mind, a blur of memory. Again, there's so much to unpack here. Maeve had forbidden Aylin's parents from eloping, but they did anyway. Later on in the series, we learn that Maeve was able to use her power to somewhat see the future and saw Aylin coming and knew that Aylin's powers could rival her own. That's why she was so interested in meeting Aylin. It's never fully explained if Maeve is like a seer of sorts, though we do know that some witches are able to see the past, present, and future using witch mirrors. Maeve tells Dorian she also uses mirrors for this purpose, so that might be how she saw Aylin coming. This whole thing sent us on a spiral. But Aylin's mom refused to bring Aylin to meet Maeve, and Selena immediately realizes that it had to be for a good reason, but in this moment, she just can't remember what it is. The reason Evelyn kept Aylin from Maeve is sprinkled throughout the series, but basically, Evelyn does not trust Maeve and sees her as a threat to Aylin. Evelyn suspects that Maeve will want to train Aylin, and that will lead to Aylin being used, bloodbound, or destroyed by Maeve. Evelyn wants to keep the depth of Aylin's powers from Maeve because she knows Maeve is up to no good.
And Maeve continues by saying, "But now you are here," Maeve said, seeming to come closer without moving. "And a grown woman. My eyes across the sea have brought me such strange, horrible stories of you. From your scars and steel, I wonder whether they are indeed true. Like the tale I heard over a year ago, that an assassin with ash river eyes was spotted by the Horned Lord of the North in a wagon bound for..." Selena cuts her off before Maeve can reveal that the wagon was bound for Endovier. She's not ready to reveal those parts of herself to Rowan or anyone else in Mistward yet. And again, we get these hints that Maeve has spies. She has eyes everywhere. From the beginning, it feels like Maeve is all-knowing and ultimately has the upper hand. And we mentioned this kind of earlier, but we suspect that Maeve used a combo of her magic, witch mirrors, and her spiders to spy on Aylin. But the fact that she knows the Lord of the North saw Aylin on her way back to Endovier is really unsettling. This is such like a specific detail and a moment that like I wish we knew more like how May found out about this. Like how the fuck did you know?
I'm so curious because we like don't I'm not going to spiral. We don't learn like who the spies are, where they're located. Like, yeah, she's got those spiders, but we learn that those spiders are in the Rune Mountains, which I went on a spiral about this in other episodes, but like those are not close to Oakwald or Endovier. So like, who were the spies? Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
No,
you're not wrong.
I'm gonna control myself. Selena confirms that she is an assassin, which prompts Maeve to ask her about her other talents. Selena answers that she hasn't been able to access them in Aurelia, to which Maeve replies that she's not on that continent anymore. Selena gets the overwhelming feeling that she needs to run, that she needs to get away from Maeve. And then a memory hits her. And I love Heir of Fire because we get so many of these like memory flashbacks. Quote, Her mother had rarely let Fae into their home, even with her heritage. A few trusted ones were allowed to live with them, but any Fae visitors had been closely monitored. And for the duration of their stay, Selena had been sequestered in the family's private chambers. She'd always thought it was overprotective, but now, show me, Maeve whispered with a spider's smile. Run, run. Aelin starts putting together the pieces that her mom was keeping the Fae away due to their possible connection to Maeve. Obviously, Evelyn does not know the power, the extent of what Maeve can do, but we know that they're probably afraid of spies. Evelyn didn't want word of Aelin's powerful fire magic making its way back to Maeve. And then Maeve insists that Aelin show her magic with a spider's smile. Brooke talked about this earlier, but we see this language about these spiders so early on. And it's all of Selena's internal alarms are going off. She knows that she needs to go, 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 that she needs to run, run, run. She is not safe with Maeve and she can feel it in her gut.
And then Maeve attacks, but not in the physical sense. Quote, the owl rustled its wings, the wood groaning beneath its talons, and the darkness in Maeve's eyes spread, reaching. There was a faint pulse in the air, a throbbing against her blood, a tapping, then a razor-sharp slicing against her mind, as if Maeve were trying to cleave open her skull and peer inside, pushing, testing, tasting. Let me just sit up for this one because this is Maeve's mind manipulation at play, which seems like an extension of the Valg powers that allow them to see inside your memories and use your fears and traumas against you. And as she is attempting to enter Selena's mind, her eyes get darker, which is crazy. And this mental attack feels like Maeve is trying to literally slice her mind. Maeve is trying to see if she's able to easily infiltrate Selena's mind. And this mind manipulation is how Maeve was able to alter Mab and Mora's memories and make herself their third fucking sister. But Selena's not having any of that. She is fighting back and she pushes against the claws in her mind, which, as you should, queen. We love that because fuck Maeve.
Fuck Maeve. After this mental attack, Maeve laughs and again comments on how Selena's parents hid her for years because of how rare fire magic is, especially fire magic as powerful as Aelin's. Maeve thinks Evelyn wanted to stifle Aelin's magic, while Maeve wanted her to submit to it. Again, Evelyn's intuition was right. Her mom was correct to keep her away from Maeve. And then Selena asked where the fuck Maeve was 10 years ago when Terrasen needed her help. And Maeve replies that she doesn't like being lied to. Selena realizes exactly what implications that had for her parents, for Terrasen, and for all of Aurelia. Really, Maeve fucked them over by not coming. Quote, the snarl on Selena's face faltered, dropped right into her gut. Aid had never come for Terrasen from the Fae, from Wendlin, and it was all because Terrasen never received help from Maeve or from Wendlin because Maeve was essentially just pissed off that Aelin's parents didn't let her see her. Maeve let Terrasen crumble, let innocent people suffer, all because she wanted that control.
But Maeve has no time for Selena's emotions. She reveals that her eyes told her that Selena had questions about the word keys. And Maeve will answer those questions, but of course, there's a price, as there always is. Selena must train her magic with Rowan. Once he feels like Selena is ready, he will take her to Doranel, where Maeve will answer her questions. There's some back and forth between them where Selena reveals that she remembers how sneaky Fae bargains and deals can be, so she makes Maeve swear to answer the questions truthfully, which, yes, that was a smart move. And with one glance at Selena's wrist, Maeve reveals that she also knows about Selena's promise to Nehemia. This bitch literally knows everything, and I don't, it's actually crazy. But with that, Selena agrees to train with Rowan to get what she needs from Maeve.
This conversation ends with Maeve telling Selena, I wish you to become who you were born to become queen. Again, we know that ultimately Maeve has no intention of letting Aelin become queen, but she wants Aelin and the keys, and Maeve knows about the Nameless is my price prophecy. Selena and Rowan leave Maeve's office. As they walk around the fortress, Selena admits that she has no intention of taking up the throne. She doesn't have a throne or a court. She wants to take this on as Selena Sardathian, not Aelin Asher Galathinius. And I know we've said it a million times in this episode, but Heir of Fire is such a fantastic example of character growth. Selena rejects her identity as Aelin at the beginning of this book, but by the end, she has healed and found her way back to her own name, and it is really beautiful.
Anywho, Rowan and Selena get into it for the first of many fucking times. He taunts her by calling her Aelin, and Selena tells him not to call her that and that no one can know who she is. She's furious, which leads her to speak from a place of anger. Quote, and then she said one of the foulest things she'd uttered in her life, bathing in pure hate. Fae like you make me understand the King of Otterland's actions a bit more, I think. Faster than she could sense, faster than anything had a right to be, he punched her. Ah, yes, we have arrived to the punch. Rereading, I was like, okay, not kid. Like, I love them so much. But let's talk about it because there's honestly a lot of mixed feelings about Rowan punching Selena, and honestly, like all viewpoints are valid. First, we have to acknowledge that what Selena says is like absolutely gross and disgusting. Like, I don't fuck with that queen. The King of Otterland has hunted and killed the Fae and magic wielders, and he has ended like families and kingdoms. Like, that's fucked up. And obviously, we didn't know his whole backstory at this point in time. But if we subtract that, what the king has done is really horrific. Plain and simple. It's horrific that Selena like says that she understands the king actions because Rowan is being an asshole. And also, like, he did also kill her parents. Selena herself admits that it's one of the foulest things that she's ever said. And she's basically saying it because it's fueled by her hate. And later on, Selena even admits that, like, she really deserved that punch. Second, we have to acknowledge that at this point in time, our view of Rowan is completely biased. We don't know his backstory at all. He is just as broken as Selena/Aelin is, which again is no excuse. Is physical violence the best way to deal with hate speech? No. Did Selena deserve some sort of retribution for saying something out of pocket? Yeah, like she did. She absolutely did.
Let's continue because it doesn't end with Rowan's punch. Selena goes after Rowan, but she's no match for him. Our girl literally can't even land a punch. To be fair, Rowan is in his Fae form, which gives him the upper hand, but this little sparring match between them is important. In hindsight, it feels like a demonstration. Rowan is showing Selena what she could be if she trained and was able to shift into her Fae form and use it to her advantage. He tells her that she's got a lot to learn, and he's right. And then the mind speaking begins. Rowan and Aelin do not actually mind speak. They're just able to read each other very well due to the Karnam and the mate bond. But I love that in this moment, before they even really get to know each other, they literally do this. Rowan looks at her and we get in italics, you call that a brawl. And then he tells her that he'll keep her weapons and she'll work in the kitchen.
And Selena thinks, quote, again, she could have sworn she could have read the unspoken words in his eyes, and I'm going to savor every damn second of your misery. We said they were mind speaking. We didn't say it was romantic, but it is fun to catch these little moments between them that hint at just how deep their bond will end up being.
Rowan leaves Selena in her room where the reality of it all starts hitting her again. Quote, what Maeve didn't understand, what she could never understand, was just how much that little princess in Terrasen had damned them a decade ago, even worse than Maeve herself had. She had damned them all and then left the world to burn into ash and dust. We've talked about this in all of our deep dives, but one of Aelin's flaws is that she blames herself, even when things are not her fault. She feels like she damned Terrasen, even though she was literally 8 years old. Like, let's be realistic. What could she have done? She hadn't mastered her magic yet. She was a kid. She was literally 8 years old. But Aelin feels like she abandoned her people and let all of the things that she loved burn into ash and dust. Again, like we mentioned at the top of this episode, she sees herself as an heir of ash, which is the title of this first part of Heir of Fire. This set of chapters ends with Selena trying to sleep, trying to dream of a different world where she is no one at all. Again, this is how she starts. She doesn't want to be who she is.
Oh, I just love that part. But that concludes the Mistword section. Let's go back to Rifthold, where Kale is spiraling with Daddy Dorian. I've missed you, Daddy Dorian. And he's trying to keep himself contained. And we meet Adian. Our first Rifthold POV comes from Kale. And let's just say, our boy is struggling. He's been dreaming of Selena killing Archer, which then turns into Selena killing Dorian, which then turns into a dream about Selena riding him. Which, like, period. Kale acknowledges that this dream is representative of the way that he sees Selena. Enemy, lover, queen.
Turns out that Kale is actually in the middle of a combo with Dorian as he thought about this dream. Like, oops. Dorian immediately calls him out, though, and says, "You were thinking about her." And Kale's like, "No, I was thinking about my dad," which is how we're reminded that Kale agreed to go back to Aniel and take his title as heir in exchange for his father's support in sending Selena to Wendlin.
And we're reminded of who Kale is at his core. Quote, he'd been willing to make that sacrifice. He'd make any sacrifice to keep Selena and her secret safe. Even now that he knew what she was. Even after she told him about the king and the word keys. If this was the price he had to pay, so be it. Kale will sacrifice anything for his friends. He is a loyal boy, okay? He hates his father, and he definitely did not want to return to Aniel, but it's worth it to him in order to keep Selena safe. Especially since he knows that Selena is Aelin now, and he knows about the king and the word keys and like what that whole thing means.
Things between Dorian and Kale are tense. Like, there's no other way to put it. Dorian is trying his best despite the fact that Kale broke Dorian's trust by sending Selena away without even giving Dorian a heads up first. Dorian tries to reassure Kale by telling him that despite what happened, they're not enemies. Which then makes Kale remember that Selena screamed, "You will always be my enemy" at him. Quote, screamed it with 10 years worth of conviction and hatred, a decade spent holding the world's greatest secret so deep within her that she'd become another person entirely. Because Selena was Aelin Ashriver Galathinius, heir to the throne and rightful queen of Terrasen. It made her his mortal enemy. It made her Dorian's enemy. Kale still didn't know what to do about it, or what it meant for them, for the life he'd imagined for them. The future he'd once dreamed of was irrevocably gone.
I know that I have been an absolute Kale hater, but like rereading this, it actually makes me not hate Kale as much as I initially did. So people can have a different point of view and things can change when you're given new evidence and research. But I actually do appreciate Kale's journey, even though he does do some crazy things. But ultimately, it just I don't know. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, but I think you're right, because Kale does understand why Selena calls him her enemy. What Otterlin did to Terrasen, to her parents, to her life is horrific. It does change the course of her life in the worst way. And Kale does understand that. Yes, he's conflicted by it because Selena should be his mortal enemy. She might be dangerous to Dorian, even though Kale knows deep down she's not. But Selena's also the woman that he loves. He imagined a life with her, and now he's she's queen, she's Fae, and there's a million things that feel they're destroying everything that they could have had together. I know I've said this a million times, but he is just going through it, and he's got no one to talk about it with because Dorian doesn't know anything yet.
And all of these thoughts are cut short because Aedion, or no idea, Ashriver walks in. I mean, that is his name spelled back. That's literally his name. But anyways, Aedion is Aelin's cousin and referred to as the Wolf of the North. He is the infamous general and king of Annalyn's army, which becomes a point of concern for Kale as he tries to decide whether or not to trust Aedion. Aedion is described as being so handsome, it's overwhelming. He's tall and muscled and a warrior. And then there's his eyes. His eyes. Quote, they were Selena's eyes, ash river eyes, a stunning turquoise with a core of gold as bright as their hair. Their hair, even the shade of it was the same. They could have been twins. If Aedion weren't 24 and tan from the years in the snow-bright mountains of Terrasen. Kale is honestly just taken aback by Aedion's eyes because he has the ash river eyes and hair like Selena. They look so much alike that they could literally be twinsies. And with all the emotional turmoil Kale is going through, it's honestly got to be a little hard for him to stare at Aedion and not be reminded of Selena. That's crazy. That's still being friends with your ex's sister or something. I don't fucking know. But and still seeing family members of them. You're oh, actually, aches.
Yeah, it's trying to get over a breakup and you have to work hand in hand with your ex's twin is what Kale is going through.
Yeah, it's actually crazy.
Kale does wonder why Aedion would serve the king and why the king even bothered to keep him alive. There's a lot of conversation about everyone's intentions. We learn that the king summoned Aedion and told him to bring the Bane, which is Aedion's legion. Aedion tells that the Bane will be there in about a week. As Aiden is dismissed, Kale notices something that makes his heart stop. Quote, Kale had to clamp down on his terror as he beheld what glinted on Aiden's finger, a black ring, the same that the king, Parrington, and most of those under their control wore. That explained why the king allowed the insolence. When it came down to it, the king's will truly was Aiden's. Later, we learned that Aiden could sense something was off with the ring the moment that the king gave it to him, and instead of wearing it, he had a replica made. But Kale doesn't know that, and immediately thinks that Aiden is being controlled by the king, meaning that Kale cannot trust him. Kale does note, though, that despite the ring, Aiden seems to have a mind of his own, which is true. He does. So,
yeah. But then Aiden walks over to Kale and Dorian and chit-chats about the past and parties they'd attended together. And again, Kale notices how similar Selena and Selena and Aiden are, not just appearance, but in arrogance and anger. During this exchange, Kale notices that Dorian is staring at Aiden. Dorian is looking at Aiden's face, his eyeballs. Okay, he's looking at his eyeballs. Kale tries to keep the conversation moving to avoid Dorian taking note of any more similarities. But Aiden's arrogance triggers Kale. Quote, Kale clenches his fist under the table. Selena had not exactly been virtuous in the past 10 years, but she never killed a natural-born citizen of Terrasen. Had refused to, actually. And Aiden had always been a goddamn bastard. But now, did he know what he wore on his finger? Did he know that despite his arrogance, his defiance, and insolence, the king could make him bend to his will whenever he pleased? He could warn Aiden, not without potentially getting himself and everyone he cared about killed, should Aiden truly have allegiance to the king. The thought of someone in Selena's family killing natural-born citizens of Terrasen really angers and frustrates Kale. But despite this, Kale wants to help Aiden, and he wonders if Aiden is even aware of how he is being controlled by the king, but doesn't know how to warn him without potentially putting himself and others in danger. And Kale's loyalty was never to the king. It was to Dorian, to Selena, and to the people that he loves. And so, despite Aiden kind of being a douchebag in this initial meeting, Kale is trying to find a way to help.
And then Kale notices that Aiden carries the Sword of Orinth, which by right is actually Selena's because it's an heirloom of Terrasen's royal family. It was Ro's sword, who is Aelin's father. Dorian comments that he's shocked Aiden bothers with something so nostalgic. Aiden replies, symbols have power, Prince. You'd be surprised by the power this still wields in the North, what it does to convince people not to pursue foolhardy plans. This isn't my favorite moment, so I won't talk about how much I love this line, but this line is so good. We see this sentiment come up again and again in this series. It also shows us how strategic Aiden is. It's not about the sword itself, it's about what it symbolizes, what it once stood for, and the history that's tied to the sword. And Aiden realizes that it has nothing to do with the sword itself. It's just all the history and what it means to people when they see it. This convo continues with Aiden quickly picking up on the tension between Dorian and Kale. He immediately clocks the reason, a woman, which is Selena. Aiden has also somehow learned that Baba Yellowlegs was killed in Rifthold. Aiden mentioning this triggers Dorian's magic, so they try to make a quick escape. Still, Kale wonders what Aiden could mean in terms of Aelin. Quote, if Aiden knew Aelin was still alive, if he knew who and what she had become or what she had learned regarding the king's power, would he stand with her or destroy her? Given his actions, given the ring he bore, Kale didn't want the general anywhere near her, anywhere near Terrasen either. Again, I love rereading this book because it just reinforces all the things that I think about Kale. Again, Kale wonders if Aiden would stand with Aelin or destroy her. But Kale immediately thinks that Aiden is a danger to Aelin and Terrasen because of the Black Ring, which, again, he thinks keeps Aiden in the king's grip. And Kale's focus isn't on protecting the king. He wants to protect Aelin, and right now, Aiden is a threat. And that's important. It's not that he's worried that Aelin will have supporters. He's worried that Aiden will hurt her when he's under the king's control. This is also the first time that Kale calls her Aelin in his own internal monologue, which is so cute. Other than when he's saying, she is Aelin Asher Regalathines. This is the first time where, naturally, he thinks of her as Aelin in his own head.
Oh, that's crazy. And Dorian and Kale get away from Adian, but Kale asks how Dorian is handling his magic. Dorian says some days are better than others, and that heightened emotions is what tends to set him off. Kale stops Dorian before he can continue, telling him, quote, I don't want details because I don't want my knowledge used against you. I know I've made mistakes, Dorian. Believe me, I know, but my priority has always been, and still is, keeping you protected. Despite it all, Kale's main priority is to protect Dorian, and that's the Kale we know. Loyal. The loyal Kale he is. Dorian stares at him and then softens. He asks Kale why he really sent Selena to Wendelin. And Kale so desperately wants to tell Dorian everything to unload his secrets, but he simply can't. So he tells Dorian he sent her to do what needs to be done and walks away from his greatest friend. And again, Kale is going through it. He's being torn in two directions, keeping Dorian protected and keeping Selena/Aylin's secrets. He's heartbroken. He's lonely and isolated. He went from having it all and dreaming of a future to feeling like he can barely keep it all together.
Our next Rifthold POV comes from Dorian. He's in the king's private chambers. The king tells Dorian that he has to go hang out with Adi and Ashriver today, and Dorian doesn't want to do that, but that's not really an option, according to his father. So Dorian asks why his father even bothers keeping Adian alive. What is the purpose behind it? Quote, because Adian's rage is a useful blade, and he is capable of keeping his people in line. He will not risk their slaughter, not when he has lost so much. He has quelled many a would-be rebellion in the north from that fear, for he is well aware that it would be his own people, the civilians, who suffered first. Again, just like Selena was used by Arabin, Adian's rage is being used as a weapon. The king knows Adian won't risk the slaughter of his people and that Adian has already lost so much. And he uses that to his advantage, making Adian stop rebellions and keep his people in line. Because ultimately, Adian knows that the king will not hesitate when it comes to killing civilians to make a point. I mean, he killed all of Aylin's family. Dorian is just absolutely disgusted by what his father says. And this ends with the king telling Dorian that he has ways of controlling Adian if he needs to, aka the ring, and then sends Dorian off to hang out with Adian.
This hangout sesh is very interesting. They go on a little walk through the gardens, and Adian does something strange. The first chance he gets when the guards aren't looking, he pushes Dorian into a rose bush, which, first of all, this is so funny, and it's such just a little kid thing to do. And because of this, Dorian gets all cut up. And during this little walk, Dorian also notices how familiar Adian's eyes are to him. But he can't quite put his finger on it yet. He's like, I know those eyes, but I don't know where. But I just think it's so funny. Out of all things, why push him into the rose bush? Okay.
I love it. This also, Dorian even himself is I don't understand why Adian would shove me on this little walk. Why would he push me into this rose bush? And I didn't mean to spiral about this, but I do think it's possible he's just shoving Dorian into the rose bush because he wants to. To Adian, Dorian represents Otterland, and Adian hates Otterland. So it's just I'm going to push the prince. Why the fuck not? And I think also, we learn, in the other books, Dorian has a rep for, being a little bratty, being a little, spoiled, being a little, a ladies' man. So, that could be part of it. But this is just, my crack theory on this reread. I did start to think that maybe Adian shoves Dorian into the rose bush because he wants to, maybe get a better look at his hands. Because I do think, Adian could be trying to confirm that Dorian doesn't have, a black ring on, and shoving him would make it so that, he gets a better look at his hands. Honestly, that's just a crack theory. I actually don't think that that's the case because there would be no reason for that at this point because they're not working together or anything. And I don't think Adian has, any plans on working with the prince. But it did, it did stand out to me on this reread. Why did we do this? Why are you trying to do this to sweet little Dorian?
I think that is so funny. But as he walks away from Adian, Dorian's thoughts are back to Kale. Things are so weird with them, and Dorian doesn't really know, what they could talk about. Since Kale doesn't want to talk about his magic or Selena, Dorian knows, Kale is keeping secrets. But still, Dorian believes in Kale, which is sweet, considering everything that has happened. Quote, he didn't believe for one moment that Kale would willingly sanction the deaths of innocent men, no matter whether they were friends or enemies. Kale had to know, then, that Selena wouldn't assassinate the Ash River royals for whatever reasons of her own. I love just how well they know each other. Dorian knows Kale wouldn't send Selena to Wendelin if he actually thought she would kill the Ash River royals. So he knows Kale must know that she wouldn't. And he's right. Dorian is such a smart king. We love him. I love him. I love him. And Kale makes the decision to send Selena to Wendelin after she tells him she's not killing the king's targets, but before he realizes that she's an Ash Reaver. So, yes, Kale sent Selena to Wendelin knowing that she'd find a way around having to go after the Ash Reavers.
After this whole interaction, Dorian's hands are still bleeding, and so he makes his way to the healer's catacombs, where he meets Sorsha for the first time. Dorian's first impression of Sorsha, quote, not beautiful, but pretty. Ouch. I'm sorry. That would hurt my feelings. To be fair, he does say that she has stunning eyes later on, but Sorsha is fixing him up, and Dorian can tell how nervous she is. Sorsha tells him that she's assigned to the southern wing of the castle, and Dorian realizes that she's patched all of them up. Sorsha's seen all of their injuries, even the ones that are difficult to explain. But Sorsha is a homie and subtly lets him know that while the healers keep records, sometimes she just forgets to write things down.
And then we get sweet Sorsha's POV. Honestly, Sorsha is dialed in on all the drama in the castle. Sorsha knows that Selena got a little freaky with Dorian because she caught Dorian holding Selena in her bed a few times. But then Philippa requested a contraceptive tonic after Kale was beside himself when Selena was poisoned with Gloriella. And the shade in that section is just golden, honestly. It's really golden. Sorsha also recognizes that their friendship was broken after that final night when she treated all of them after Selena opened the portal. And Sorsha honestly has kept all of their secrets, and she feels truly invisible.
After Dorian leaves, Sorsha has a lot to clean up, and she's got one more thing to do. Quote, on top of it, she still had her weekly letter to write to her friend, who wanted every little detail about the palace. After her death, we learned that Sorsha's friend is Ren Ellsbrook. He kept asking her for information about, everything going on in the palace. Those letters are what caused her to be brought in front of the king, where she is unfortunately beheaded. Sorsha gets back to work, certain that Dorian's already forgotten her name. And then we learn that Sorsha has been in love with Dorian since she first laid eyes on him 6 years ago, which makes me so sad. Ugh.
Our final POV in this set of chapters is the one, the only, Manon Blackbeak. And honestly, how can we not fangirl? She is our queen of witches. We love her. We love her. We love her. We love her. I'm a big Manon stan. I love Manon so much.
Me too.
So it's so hard to pick what your favorite characters are in the series because they're all great, honestly. But our first encounter with Manon sets the tone for our introduction to the witches and the addition of their POV to this story. Throughout Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, and The Assassin's Blade, we've been painted a very specific picture of the witches. They're terrifying, violent, soulless, and evil. And Manon's POV is no different. Manon immediately kills 2 villagers who enter her house that she's hiding out in, and she chases the third one down and kills him as well.
Like Brooke said, we are introduced to Manon as a hunter, a predator. She is so scary. Quote, she counted to 10 because she wanted to hunt and had been that way since she tore through her mother's womb and came roaring and bloody into this world. The way that Manon is introduced to the story is so important and purposeful. Manon is portrayed as evil, and not evil in the same way that the King of Otterlin is, but evil regardless. Initially, we see her and most of the other witches through this angle, which makes their shift to some of our favorite characters so impactful. And it's not just that though, Manon herself sees herself as a hunting, killing machine too. As she grows and changes, her identity has to shift entirely. She allows herself to feel and to love. And I loved seeing how she starts in this POV as she sees herself that way too. She's internalized that, which we won't get into it now, but her grandmother was a big part of Manon seeing herself in that way.
Mm-hmm. I think out of all of the characters in the series, her character, her arc is one of my favorites, other than Aylin's, obviously. Hers is literally one of my favorites. In Manon's POV, we also learned the reason why she's been hiding out in this village. She's been pretending to be a Kraken witch in an attempt to get the real ones to come out. Quote, they were still out there, the self-righteous, insufferable Krakens, hiding as healers and wise women. Her first glorious kill had been a Kraken, no more than 16, the same age as Manon at the time. The dark-haired girl had been wearing the blood-red cloak that all Krakens were gifted upon their first bleeding, and the only good it had done was mark her as prey. Again, this introduction to the Krakens is so important. They are immediately painted as the enemies, and more specifically, Manon's target. Manon's first kill is a Kraken witch. It makes the reveal that Manon is half Kraken so impactful later on.
Manon kept the cloak of her first kill as a trophy and still wears it now. No other Iron Teeth witch would dare wear their enemy's color, but Manon isn't afraid of the matrons. Quote, from the day Manon stalked into Blackbeak Keep wearing the cloak and holding that Kraken heart in a box, a gift for her grandmother, it had been her sacred duty to hunt them down, one by one, until there were none left. The fact that the gift is a heart, I'm not even going to try to break that down, but that's a lot, okay? But Manon's grandmother knew that Manon is half Kraken and still made it her quote-unquote sacred duty to hunt them down. Again, we'll get into Manon's grandmother later on, but it's on site. But Manon's grandmother purposefully turned Manon into a monster and made her hunt her own people. I also think it's super interesting that without realizing it, Manon wears the color of her people. We end our first Manon POV with an image of her sucking the dead man's blood off of her fingernails as she goes to hunt the last villager who ran off. So that's Manon. That's our introduction to Manon.
That's our intro. Can I just say, I remember the first time I read this book and I got away from this POV and I was just like, what the fuck just happened? What the fuck are we doing here? I'm so confused. And next, our favorite moments. These are moments in this set of chapters that we really just love.
I have two favorite moments in this set of chapters. The first is when Adian, Dorian, and Kale are chatting it up, and it comes up that Adian carries a sword of Orin. I mentioned that earlier, that's one of my favorite moments. When Dorian comments that he didn't think Adian was that sentimental, to carry the sword, Adian replies that symbols have power prints, which I think is just such an important line and an important thing to remember. Things aren't just things. They often represent so much more than that. And I feel like that's even just SJM's writing in itself. Everything has some sort of symbolism, some sort of purpose, some sort of power. I think it's also Adian is a war general, and this line reveals just how strategic and smart he is. My second favorite line is when Manon is absolutely gutting those three villagers. They call her Kraken, and she sneaks up on one of them and whispers, wrong kind of witch, before she kills him. I just think it's one, so badass, so scary, but also really interesting, in the context of the story, since Manon is actually half Kraken. So this man was not wrong, but the line is badass.
Yeah. One of my favorite things to say is right idea of wrong bitch. And I feel like when I read this, I was literally like, oh, me and Manon are one. We are the same. Actually, maybe I am the Croaking Queen. Okay. I also have two favorite moments from this set of chapters. The first one comes after her and Rowan meet for the first time, and Selena says if he was truly as old as she suspected, she was likely little more than a speck of dust to him, a fizzle of life in the long burning fire of his immortality. He could probably kill her without a second thought, and then move on to his next task, utterly untroubled by ending her existence. It didn't unnerve her as much as it should have. I just love that, she says, he'd be able to move on to the next task, but, really, he would never be able to live the same without her. She doesn't know at this point, but, they're locked in for life. They're locked in for life. And without her, considering that they are mates, right now, it seems really insignificant to her, and, they seem insignificant to each other. But, girl, you just wait. You have no idea. You have no idea what's to come. And this moment is just a funny little moment to me because it reminds me of White Chicks, which is one of my absolute favorite movies of all time, where they're oh, you want to talk about mother? And Selena is oh, the prince wanted to tangle. Whatever self-control he'd had on their trek to the fortress was hanging on by a thread. Good. I just I don't know. I just think it's funny. I just pictured White Chicks in my head. I was reading that. And lastly, our final thoughts.
Heir of Fire is my comfort Throne of Glass book. I literally listen to it on audiobook once every 3 months. So I'm so glad to be back in it. I think the lore, the history, and so many important pieces of the story start to fall into place in this book. And it's just always fun to be back in it. like you said earlier, like there's so many POVs and there's so much going on. Like you don't realize like the importance of things. And then you get to like Queen of Shadows, Empire of Storms, and you're like, holy shit, that's from like X, Y, and Z back in Heir of Fire. And it's just like SJM is a master. But I also love Rowan and his character arc as well. Like these first few chapters really do remind you of how broken he is and like where he's coming from. And he is just like, honestly, on a first read, like very unlikable, which is funny because you end up loving him so much. Heir of Fire is just like so interesting to me. Like also as like a folklore nerd, there's like a lot of really interesting things in there. So it's going to be so fun to deep dive it.
I agree. I'm also so happy to be an Heir of Fire. Like Cami and I have been talking about this book for so long because we neither one of us have done like a full physical reread of this yet, and already it's just so fun because the first few books are really good, but this is like really where shit starts to pop off, and like I love going back and seeing like where it all started. And honestly, like I talked about earlier, I'm a big Manon stan. I love her so much, and honestly, going back and seeing Manon's first chapter is so crazy because of just like how far she comes at the end of the series. And also it's insane the amount of information that is packed just into these first 8 chapters. And like I really just can't wait to continue to deep dive this book because there's so many things that I did not pick up on the first time that like I'm already picking up now in the first 8 chapters. And I also loved Assassin's Blade and deep diving it, but I'm just really glad to be back with Daddy Dorian and being able to like get our man Rowan into here and like all of like the people that we end Kingdom of Ash with. Like, it's so good to just, it feels like being back home almost. Like it's crazy. But that wraps up our deep dives for chapters 1 through 8 of Heir of Fire. We hope you enjoyed our analysis and theories. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and TikTok where our handle is @BookishRealmsPod.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on these chapters, so drop us a comment or send us a message. Also, leave us a rating if you like what you heard. It really helps us out.
Join us next week when we continue our Heir of Fire deep dive with chapters 9 through 15. Until then, keep reading, Assassins.
Bye!